Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Um, if you are for your own purposes, or for if you're a cultivator growing at home, or if you're a cultivator growing on a larger scale and you're looking into solar panels to try to figure out how to reduce your costs, get off the grid, there's lots of reasons why you might want to get into solar panels. But for some people located in different parts of the country, might be forgetting about one thing that might come up and bite you in the ass, um, you know, as time goes on. So we're talking about solar panels today on our live. But I'm going to try to do right now. I'm on Instagram. Hi everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. I'm on Instagram right now, but I also have it up on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you go over to YouTube, you'll be able to type in comments, ask questions, get some feedback, find out what we're doing here at Trella, learn more. I'm going to go into my background, my personal background, and how I got into this space. Why is it that I'm talking about solar panels? What gives me the authority to talk about solar panels regarding natural disasters and hail and wind? So I'm going to try to do it on both Instagram and through StreamYard. I'm going to try to do it in both places. But we're just getting started. I'll let everybody know in YouTube that we are getting started. We're going to be going into a topic that we talked about last week. We go live every week on YouTube and LinkedIn. We go live every week. So if you've been following Trella, by the way, I'm Aja Atwood, CEO and one of two co-founders of Trella Technologies. Usually I'm joined by one of our other team members, Denise Snuffy G. Snuffy G unfortunately had to be called away for a passing. Someone close to her passed away, so she's at a wake today. And we're going to be sending her our thoughts and prayers, and the family our thoughts and prayers and comfort their way. She'll be back. She'll be back next week. She'll be back next week. I'm in a new location as well today. I'm in a new location. I don't have any artwork up, which is kind of, it's a little plain and white behind me. Definitely want to get some artwork up, bring some color to the background. I'm just going to wait a few minutes for people to join. If you caught some of our old videos, actually, if you caught our post that I think we posted it earlier this morning, and we also did it live last week. We're talking about solar panels today. If you're a grower, if you're a cultivator, regardless of what size you are, if you're a residential or a commercial grower, you're going to want to stay tuned. You want to stay tuned today, especially if you're looking into going into solar panels, looking into solar panels. Huge benefit, especially, nowadays when we got it's the heat of the summer here in the Northeast. You got a lot of heat issues going on, even in the UK, over in Europe. So using the sun as a source for energy is definitely something that we should all be looking into. And depending on where you are in the world, you get more benefit from it than others. But as climate is changing, we're going to find that there are going to be more areas to get more benefit. However, as climate is changing, we also have to consider what's the impact of the climate on those solar panels that are outside, exposed to the elements, exposed to the wind, etc. So right now we're live on both Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. But we're probably going to wind up shifting everything over to YouTube because it's going to be pretty difficult right now for me to maintain the comments in Instagram and maintain the comments in YouTube. So if you are in the YouTube, jump over to Trella Tech. We're live. You'll see the feed right now. You can ask questions. If you ever wanted to know more about the company, the product, what we do, myself, this is the way that we're doing it. We're doing weekly sessions every week. We used to do them on Tuesday. We switched it up. Now we're doing them on Wednesday. And we'll be back next Wednesday at noon at EST for our next live. So whether or not you're listening in live right now, or if you're checking us out on a recording, coming back to it, please subscribe, click that notification button so that you get the notifications. Just subscribing doesn't always let you know when we're going live or when we're posting new stuff. You actually have to go in and click that notification button. So please do that for us. Help us out with the algorithms. If you're a supporter of Trella and you want to, see our content spreading out there, please share, like, subscribe. Hey, Tahi, good to see you again. Philly love there. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we're live on Instagram now, but I'll probably be ending this in a couple of minutes and asking everybody to come over to either YouTube or LinkedIn, where I can engage with people and talk about comments. The other reason why you want to get over to YouTube and LinkedIn is I've got some stuff I want to share, some stuff I want to show, and you won't be able to see it on Instagram. You're only going to be able to see it on YouTube. So thanks, Ty. Thanks for the Philly love. So if come on over to YouTube, you'll be able to see the whole thing. If you're into growing, if you've got some sort of a cultivation facility that you either have already started, or if you're looking to expand, if you're just trying to plan things out, now is the time. Now is the time to look into solar panels. But don't just, go out there and purchase any solar panel. You want to be a little bit thoughtful about this, because the reason why solar panels are so great right now is because we need renewable energy. We need to get ourselves off of fossil fuel. But the other thing is that the temperatures are increasing, the climate is changing, so you're going to wind up having regions that are better suited for solar panels. However, with the climate changing, you got to be worried about how do those natural disasters impact you. So today we're talking specifically about hail damage. And that could be, we got people out in Denver, Colorado that have solar panels on their cultivation facilities. You're going to want to listen in. We got people that are in Oklahoma that are doing their own, caregiving grows, or doing residential style grows. And maybe you've got solar panels to help offset some of that cost and make you more efficient. You're going to want to check this out. Even if you're in Pennsylvania, out in, kind of close to the East Coast, there's hail out there too. Hail is spreading. And it's getting more intense. And if you're going to go out there and purchase solar panels to help you, maintain your facility, reduce your costs, that's a significant investment. You can't just, you don't want to just throw them up there on the roof and hope for the best. That you got to protect them, and you also have to kind of be a little bit, forward thinking in regards to what's it going to be like, not just this year, but 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. How are these things going to change? So everybody, if you're in Instagram, I'm asking everyone to move on over to YouTube, where I got some slides, I got some pictures to show, some things to talk about. When we get started, I'm also going to talk about myself, my personal story on how I got in to the cannabis tech space, how I got into ag tech, and how what really got me there was my natural disaster experiences, just seeing what hurricanes, floods, hail, wildfires can do to people's businesses. Made me really start thinking about what are we going to do proactively? What are we going to do to protect our businesses, protect our food, protect our plant medicine, all of those things. So come on over. I'm going to end this live on Instagram right now, and we'll focus right on YouTube and we'll get started. All right, everyone. Matt Peace, Matt Love on Instagram. See you over at YouTube. All right. Now let's get started on YouTube and LinkedIn feed. Okay. So thanks for everybody for your patience while we waited for some people to get on board and come on in. If you're new to this Trello Weekly Live, my name is Aja Atwood. I'm the CEO and one of two co-founders of Trello Technologies. We develop systems and solutions to help improve the indoor farming industry. We think there's a definite need to be able to grow whatever it is that you want to grow, wherever you want to grow it, whether it's inside your basement, inside a warehouse, inside a container, underground, in a space shuttle. We have so many different places where we're going to need to be able to grow whatever it is that we want to grow. And we want to make sure that we're doing it in a sustainable manner, which means making sure that it doesn't require a lot of energy and waste and material to do so, but also making sure that however we design these infrastructures, that they can withstand the changes that are coming when it comes to climate. So also making sure that you're environmentally sustainable as well from a climate risk perspective. So we're going to get started. I'll remove that banner. And if you were with us last week, I talked a little bit about what's happening out in Texas. The fact that they're asking people to reduce their water consumption. It's getting very dry. And some people are moving to solar power because energy being used. Hold on, I've got a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue here. I'm in a new location, still trying to work on on our internet connection. Please bear with us. It's back. Okay. So what I was saying was solar power is bailing a lot of people out. It's going to be an incredible resource. A lot of people in Texas rely on solar power, as an alternative to the ERCOT, ERCOT, which is their power distribution entity out there, which is separate from everybody else. A lot of people are looking for other solutions to mitigate having to deal with the blackouts that are coming. And this isn't just for Texas. This is happening all over the world. I mean, there's been recent news in the UK and Europe that they're increasing heat waves, which means that people are using their HVAC and their air conditioning systems a lot more than they used to, which means that it's a draw on the power grid, which means that they wind up having to sometimes black out or brown out other areas so that they can keep what they consider to be priority areas up and running. And basically that can depend, it depends on the jurisdiction to define who is a priority, who's actually going to, stay with power, and who's going to have to go through brownouts or blackouts. This is happening more and more and more. So people are looking at other ways of trying to develop, try to, get some energy. And solar power, in my opinion, is one of the best options that you can look for. I'm a huge believer in the solar power, industry. I think there are improvements. Definitely, there are things that need to be improved upon. There are things that you need to look out for, and we're going to cover that today. But before we jump in to this, let me just remove this and scroll in so we can talk a little bit about my experiences and why do I feel like I have, why do I feel like I have the education and the experience to talk about solar panels and natural disasters? Before I started Trellis Technologies, I spent over 15 years in what's called property risk engineering, and started right after I graduated from college. So graduated from Northeastern University with my mechanical engineering degree, did a lot of co-ops, worked at, other industries. One of the industries I worked in, and I quickly learned I did not like, was Raytheon, the defense systems industry. Wasn't for me. Did not like the environment, didn't like what we were really working on. And when I graduated, I wanted to look for, alternative, jobs, and stumbled upon property risk engineering, which I had never heard of it before. When I was in school, didn't even know that it was an option. And these are engineers that actually go out to different locations to determine what's going to happen if there's a fire or a natural disaster of some sort. And the picture that I saw when I was at a career fair, actually, and this is how I learned about it. So I'm at a career fair, I'm walking around, and I see this booth about becoming a property risk engineer. And I thought, that's it. I love being outdoors. I don't like sitting behind a desk. I like seeing new things, experiencing new things. This just seemed like the perfect type of industry for me to get into. So I applied, I interviewed. There's a whole nother story we could talk about on that one, because that was a learning experience too. But I got the job. They called me the next day, said, you've been hired. And they taught me a plethora of things. I started working for a company called FM Global. Some of the people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn still work for FM Global or in other insurance carriers. I've worked for, over my years, I've worked for a plethora of different companies. FM Global is actually an insurance company. So why would an insurance company want to hire an engineer? What's the need? Well, as you're going to see as we go through our slides today talking about solar panels and hail damage, as you're going to see, insurance companies are a bit ahead of the game when it comes to protecting property and businesses from damage. Why? Because they've got money on the line. They're going to have to pay out a claim. So they actually have research centers, huge research centers, research campuses, and engineers and big engineering departments that are specifically there to figure out how do they mitigate and alleviate having to pay out a claim, which means how does the client that they're insuring, what do they have to do to make sure that they're protected? So it's a win-win. It's a win for the insurance company. It's a win for the client. They get some information. But if you are not in the property insurance game, specifically if you're not in what's called the HPR insurance game, highly protected risk. Highly protected risks are companies that are worth millions and billions of dollars. I'm talking about we wouldn't even look at a location that was under maybe 20, depending on the company. We wouldn't look at a location that was worth less than 25 million. You had to be at least more than 25 million dollars, depending on the company. We were looking at locations that were worth billions and billions and billions of dollars to try to figure out if it's a hurricane or a fire or a natural catastrophe of some sort. What do we recommend that the client do to protect themselves, because it's a win for the client and it's also a win for the insurance company. I like doing what I did. I liked doing it, but I liked doing it more when I was working more with the client and able to, depending on the different insurance company, able to kind of look at it more from the client's perspective than the insurance company's perspective. So I stepped away. Mainly, one of the big things that kind of made me pivot out of my property risk engineering um, career was the fact that I was working for insurance companies, and just didn't like it. I prefer to work directly for the client. So that's what we're doing here at Trello. We have consulting, climate risk consulting, and we've got clients that we can talk to and work on and work on the behalf of them to protect their businesses, so that we're able to give them all the information that we have at our fingertips to make sure that they can make the best decisions. But insurance companies, they're protective of their information. They're protective of their proprietary information. So a lot of the things that insurance companies know is not accessible to the public. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate thing. I hope that that changes. If you're in the insurance space and you're listening to me talk about it right now, I think it would be a very wise decision for your brand to start opening up some of this information to the larger population, because the information that you guys have, I'm talking about these HBR insurance carriers like FM Global, AIG, Liberty Mutual, Zurich, a plethora of them. You know that you have a lot of really good information, and we're moving forward down this climate change, pathway to the point where the information that you have, please don't sit on it. Start sharing it with the greater community. Luckily, I have a lot of experience, so I take a lot of that experience with me, and I can be a benefit to my client. But I'm just one person. I think the bigger players need to start stepping up and sharing a lot more of their information, and they do share some information publicly. But the real meat and potatoes, the real good stuff, you won't find that on the public domain. That's proprietary. So I would like to see the industry move forward from away from that. But anyway, getting back to my story. When I started in property risk engineering, I was told that, if you want to move up in the chain, which is what, you graduate from college and they tell you, get a job. And this is 2002, 2003 time frame. If you want to, and you're in corporate America, the typical thing is to try to move up the chain. And, just like a lot of my peers, people around my age, I tried. I did that path, and I decided that I wanted to specialize in something, because a great way to move up is to become a specialist in a particular area. And at the time, I was working in Boston, Massachusetts, and there was one individual by the name of Charles Olivier. And if he's still around, I always, from time to time, share his name because he was a really great mentor for me. Charlie Olivier worked at FM Global, and he also worked in the Rhode Island area. And for those of you that may or may not know, as I mentioned before, just a few minutes ago, the insurance companies have a bunch of information. And if you're joining me, please, chime in the comments. Let me know where you're joining in from. Let me know what might interest you. Do you have solar panels? Are you looking to buy solar panels? So I can start catering my future commentary to that. So please feel free to jump in the comments and let me know why you're here and what kind of information you're looking for. So I'll go back to my story. But anyway, so Charlie Olivier, he worked in the Rhode Island area, and FM Global at the time had just opened this large research campus in Rhode Island. And this is where they would do a lot of testing. They were able to do some incredible things. Some of that was blowing ping pong balls and lumber through windows to figure out how could you protect windows from impact damage. Putting pressure on roof systems to figure out how much pressure and how much wind speed could a particular roof system hold. I mean, they were actually pushing things to failure. And because I was in the Boston area and in New England, and because Charlie was my mentor, I was able to go to the research campus on several occasions and see a lot of the stuff that they did. So I learned not only about, what's it like to just consult with the client, but I learned the research end of it and the testing and the impact, the testing protocol part of it. Charlie taught me a lot. And one of the things that I learned from that is that a lot of these products. So, you could, roofing companies, there's a lot of different roofing companies out there. There are a lot of different solar panel companies out there. If they wanted to get something tested, they can submit their material for testing, and then they go in and they start testing it. And I'll get back into why that's important later, but just wanted to be clear that insurance companies put a lot of effort, a lot of capital, a lot of investment into engineering. And I spent 15 years in that industry. I spent about 8 years with FM Global. FM Global is considered to be one of the top insurance companies when it comes to their engineering prowess. They've got the most engineers. They have probably the most advanced training. They were the first to have a research center. So they're kind of, they're cutting edge. If anyone's out there from FM Global listening, yes, I'm giving you props. There were some things you need to improve upon. Don't get me wrong, but from the engineering perspective, definitely a play. So then I moved on. I became a windstorm specialist, which meant that I had, this was maybe 8 years down the road. So I'd done a lot of training with Charlie Olivier, did a lot of evaluations, started doing training, started creating educational material for my peers, other engineers in the department. And then I moved on to a couple of other companies during my career. I worked at AIG, and they were building their engineering, their property risk engineering from scratch. I was I think the 13th engineer to be hired. And by the time I left, I think we were in the close to maybe 200s or something like that, and globally. So that was like the wild, wild west of property risk engineering. None of the engineering materials were developed. They all had to be developed from scratch. So I got brought on to help with windstorm and hurricanes, and eventually wound up helping out with flood until we got somebody else that could come in and supplement that. But it was a great learning opportunity for me because I was able to kind of start digging and researching and finding out how, what are all these different industry standards, what are all these different building codes, and how can we use what's already out there to develop engineering standards that we could use for our clients. So kind of recreating or creating from scratch a lot of the standards that we would use to engineer a lot of these locations. I did the same thing for Liberty Mutual too before I left corporate life full time and moved into Trella Technologies, and that was back in 2019, and I'm full time with Trella. It was an incredible learning opportunity. Having the role of having to create the engineering standards really helped me to learn where can I find information, and what's available in the public domain, and what can't you find. So I'm able to dig up stuff and find some things. So what I did today was I put together just a few quick, I won't call them slides. They're not really slides, but a couple of different websites and some things that I've found that you might find to be interesting and helpful if you're out there looking for ways to protect your solar panel investment. So this is going to be catered to people who are cultivators, who are growers. You could be on the residential end where you might just have, you might want to have a small solar system in your backyard to help supplement your power consumption, all the way up to those that are, having 50,000 square foot locations with, thousands and thousands of solar panels. This is relevant for everyone. Even if you have one solar panel, if you're relying on it for something important, this is going to be valuable information. So stick around, stay tuned. I'm going to go through several things. So let me share my screen again. And that, boom. So yeah, this is where we started. This is where we stopped last week. And like I mentioned before, we go live every week. So if you happen to catch this on the recording, hit that subscribe, hit that like, please place a comment, helps with the algorithms. Really appreciate that. But we started last week talking about the Texas, blackouts and power outages. this is not just happening in Texas; it's happening everywhere. But what they're relying on is solar to bail them out. A lot of see companies. Well, it's something that we started talking about with Texas, but it actually applies to everyone. So I'll show you in just a second what I mean. All right, so I've got two screens. So if you see my eyes going one way versus the other, it's because I'm looking at one of my screens as I'm talking. Um, let's see here. So let's first just jump in real quick about talking about why is hail a problem for solar panels. So hail or stones are basically big chunks of ice that form into a size of a ball, all different sizes. We'll talk about that in a second. It can be really small, less than 1 inch, and there's been hail that's been over 10 inches in diameter, 10 inches in diameter. So depending on where you are and depending on the storm, the size of the hail will vary. But what happens is they fly down. They hit cars, roofs, skylights, solar panels, all different types of systems, and create massive damage. And one of the things that they do with solar panels is they can either break them completely so that it's obvious. You'll see a big crack, and I'll show you some pictures of that. Or as you can see right here, they can just make these small little cracks on your solar panels that may not even be visible to the eye, but might be so small that what it does is it actually creates a barrier for that UV to go through to be pulled into the solar panel to be used for energy. All those little cracks create friction. I think you could. I'd use it. I'll compare it to friction. Basically, you don't want resistance. You don't want something in the way of that solar panel. You want a clear screen, a clear surface, so that as much of that UV that comes from the sun gets pulled into the solar panels and gets moved into your power distribution. So these small cracks can eventually cause an impact on the efficiency. So you might not see it, but you'll notice that over time, after a storm, maybe not even over time, maybe right after a storm, you notice, hey, I'm not as efficient on my solar panel output as I used to be. It could be small little fractures, little cracks that are causing issues to your solar panel performance. The other thing that you have to watch out for when it comes to small cracks is that over time you have another storm. What can happen is called those repeat occurrences of something continuously hitting a surface might allow that crack to become something bigger. Or there's also moisture intrusion. You don't want to allow moisture to get into your solar panels. So small cracks can let a little bit of moisture get below the surface over time, which will, one, affect your efficiency, the UV transfer, and two, cause moisture issues so that you wind up shorting it out and then it doesn't work at all. Small cracks, large cracks, they're all the concern when it comes to solar panels. It can either 100% put your solar panel out of service, or you could wind up just having like a small 5 to 10% reduction in how well your solar panels perform. All of this will affect your costs. So it's definitely something that you want to look at. A lot of people go, well, I have a warranty. Okay, the warranties will, if it covers, and as you can see, most warranties do not cover damage related to hailstorms. So that's key. Most warranties do not. If you purchase your solar panels already, reach out to your manufacturer and ask about what's covered, what's not covered. That's your first step, is to figure out what are you working with. And two, warranties might replace your solar panels, but what about the interruption? I think that's the thing that people forget, is you don't want to have to get to the point where you're filing a claim for a warranty or for the insurance company. You don't want to get to that point, because if you've gotten to that point, that means you're shut down, something's been impacted. And when you're working, when you have a business that's up, running, and operational, you don't want any interruptions. Yes, the insurance company might make you whole again, but you're going to have to suffer through that interruption. And typically what happens is, and a lot of people forget about this too, this is something insurance companies do not cover. Insurance companies do not cover the fact that while you were down, or while you were, not at 100% operation, some of your customers may have gone to other competitors. And they may have a great experience over there and they may not come back. So that's what we call a loss in market share. Your insurance company will not cover your loss of market share. So if you are in a competitive industry where you need to be operational as much as possible, you don't want to allow small things, little cracks, little fractures in your solar panels to be an issue where you wind up having to file a claim with your insurance company or your warranties, because there will be an interruption, there will be some sort of a downturn, and it's going to impact your bottom line. One of the other things that this here said, this solar review, and the solar review is a website that is, they're for solar panels. So a lot of this information that I'm reading and showing to you comes from the perspective of the industry. Obviously, they're going to want to say everything that's most positive about solar panels and their potential to, not suffer damage from hail. But stick around, you'll find out, what there are some things that there are some solar panels that can withstand some of this hail damage, but not a lot of it. And I think they're missing a big section of the country, and there needs to be some improvement. They talk about, experiencing hail such as the Midwest. So I'm going to show you a map of the entire U.S. and you'll see how far across does that hail actually span. And depending on where you live and depending on where you're at, or where your business is at, or where your cultivation facilities are, you're going to want to take a look at this map and try to figure out, are you what's considered to be in a severe hail region? So as we move forward, I'll explain more about what defines severe. So if you're looking at solar panels, just to show you the next part here, if you're looking at solar panels, they are tested. They are testing these photovoltaic panels. PV, solar panels. You may also hear people talk about PV modules, photovoltaic, same thing. There are testing procedures out there to determine whether or not a solar panel can withstand the impact of hail. But the issue is that one, these tests are limited, in my opinion, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. And two, it depends on who's doing the testing. So as I mentioned before, when we got started, I was talking a little bit about my background when it comes to natural disasters. And when I was at some of these research campuses, one of the things that I learned was that whenever a company that makes a product, so a company, let's say they make a product and they want to get it tested so they can get some sort of a certification. So this doesn't have to do with just hail. This could be a lot of different certifications. It costs money to get your product tested for a certification. It's not cheap. So what the company will typically do is they'll do a lot of their testing in-house. They'll do some preliminary testing in-house, make sure that they feel confident that they're going to pass the test when they submit it to or send it off to be tested by a third party, like a UL, an FM, etc. Now, in order to make sure that they pass with success, and this is something that was specific to FM approvals and some other entities, what they do is they allow the producer of the product, so the company who has the product, they come in and they give a sample, and the sample is probably going to be something that's freshly, out of the box, hasn't been used, hasn't experienced a little bit of life in the field, hasn't been in the field for a very long time. And when they put this together, they put it together, meticulously. So for example, I remember watching some roofing systems getting their FM approval testing done, and I won't name the name of the company that was doing the testing, but they would send in their engineering team, and their engineering team would put this roof together. I mean, it would take them hours to put together a 4-foot by 8-foot roof sample. Now, in real life, anyone who's had their roof replaced, anyone who's has seen how roofs go down, no one is taking 4 hours to put together a 4-foot by 8-foot section of roof. So that's how meticulous these samples that are being tested are done. Like they put a lot of energy into making sure that they don't fail the test. The materials are new, like shingles, for example. Shingles come hot off the press shingles. But when you get the shingle at your house or on your building, the shingle has been packed in a layer. So it's been, they pack them up, stack them high, they wrap them, they put them on a pallet, they sit them in a warehouse. So the shingle has been compressed, it's been moved, it's been placed in the warehouse. It's not the same as the shingle that comes right out of the gate. They do their certification testing on the new shingle. They don't do the certification testing on the old shingles. There are some entities that are starting to do that type of thing, like IBHS, which is the Institute for Building and Home Safety. They started doing testing on used materials because you're not really getting a real understanding of what's going to happen for something that's been installed for 5 or 10 years, unless you wind up doing testing on things that have been exposed for 5 or 10 years. So it takes time to do it, but they're doing it. So the solar panels that are being tested, they've been submitted, they've been tested prior. What they're doing for these particular tests, so the UL and IEC is the international version of the UL testing. They test these things and they throw hailstones, so they can use steel balls, different types of things. There are some like IBHS, they actually make hail. They try to recreate an actual ice ball and use that for their testing. But what they do is they measure what's the diameter of the hail that they want to use, and how fast are they going to drop the hail on this system. So it could be, they'll do the same thing for solar panels, they'll do it for roofing systems, etc. So it's all about what's the size of the hailstone and how fast is it impacting the substrate or the surface. So for this particular test, what they decided to do was to hold it between 1 inch to 3 inch. And that's the diameter of the hail. So 1 inch to 3 inches, and going as slow as 16.8 miles per hour all the way up to 88 miles an hour. So what I want you to key in on as we go through the rest of this, what I want you to key in on is the diameter, 1 inch to 3 inch, 1 inch to 3 inch. Well, the first question that I ask is, how prevalent is 1 inch, 3 inch, and why did they stop at 3 inch? Aren't there hailstorms in the past that have been much bigger than 3 inches? Why? Yes, Asia, there have been. I'm going to show you some of that. So this solar review, now again, keeping in mind they are pro solar panels, so they're only going to give you information that makes it look like these things are good. They specifically say, according to the map below, the areas between Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska experience hailstorms with 2 inch stones. Actually, it's 2 inches or more, but I'll show you. Outside of this zone, the probability of encountering these types of storms are moderate to low. So the chances of you, even if you go out, you get a solar panel system, you find out that it's been tested with one of these testing protocols, the UL or the IEC protocol, UL 61730 or IEC 61730. You're like, yep, bet my solar panel can withstand that. I'm all set. But the issue is, it doesn't do it hasn't been tested over 3 inches. And depending on where you are, you might be okay. But for some of you, you're not going to be. This map that I'm showing you here is from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So they do a lot of hurricane watching, hailstorm predicting, a lot of good information that they keep that's accessible to the public. A lot of people, NOAA, NOAA, check that out if you're interested. There's a lot of good data. I'm going to show you an example of how one individual used their data to come up with a really cool map. But this is the map of how many times we've had hail more than 2 inches. So it's kind of limited. I'm going to show you another map that gives you a little bit more information, but this is color coded. So the darker the color, that means those areas have had hailstones that are greater than 2 inches. And you can see that almost everywhere throughout the middle of the US, they've experienced hail greater than 2 inches. Well, all right, you might say, well, Asia, the test goes all the way up to 3 inches, so it's all good. 2 inches, 3 inches, and there's a significant difference. There's the difference between something hitting it as small as 0.1. It's going to change how the system performs. Let me show you some more information. This is, let me zoom out, from FM Global. I talked a little bit about them before. They have come up maps that use for that ensure. Looks like I've got another Wi-Fi issue. Please bear with me here. This is a map that they use for people that they insure. So if you're looking at this map and you want to know, okay, am I in an area where I'm going to get really big hail? Am I hail exposed? And two, how big will the hailstones be? So that's the question. These are answers you can get from looking at this map. One, am I in a hail region? Two, if I am in a hail region, how big will the hailstones be? So if I look for a solar panel and I find out if they're tested, I want to know if they're tested for something that's considered to be severe. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see, let me bring this down. There you go. You can see that I've got the hail map turned on. Green is moderate, pink is severe, and this dark pink is very severe. So you might be able to see the hover, but if not, I have it for you here. Moderate green means you're going to have hail that's less than 1.75 inches, on most likely. Severe pink means you're going to have hail that's between 1.75 and 2 inches. And then very dark means you're going to have hail greater than 2 inches. So if you're looking at this map, this really dark pink means that you're going to have damage. You're going to probably have hail that's going to be greater than 2 inches. And again, these things can go, we've got hail on record that's in double digits, 10 inches and more, 8 inches. Hail in these regions, this is what can happen. And if you've got a facility where you got a lot of money on the line, you invested a lot of money for these solar panels, you don't want to risk having to gamble with, hopefully I'll never have hail hit my roof that's more than 3 inches. You don't want to gamble with that. You want to make sure that you got all your bases covered, especially if you're in this dark pink region here. So that includes Denver, Colorado, all of Oklahoma, Nebraska, South Dakota, the southern part of North Dakota, some of Iowa, some of Missouri. There are cultivators and farmers all in this area that are probably looking at solar panels or have already installed solar panels. If you're in this pink region and you have solar panels, you need to go back to your solar panel manufacturer and find out, one, has it been tested with those UL tests that I just talked about, UL 61730, has it been tested? And two, to what degree? Because as you'll see in a few, you can test, 1 to 3 inches, or you can go above and beyond. And if you're in one of this very severe dark pink region, you want to make sure that your solar panels have been tested above and beyond, for sure. You don't want to gamble with it. Again, maybe the insurance company will cover it, maybe the warranty will kick in, but you don't want an interruption, not even for an hour. You don't want an interruption, especially if you're in a competitive industry. Here's some other maps so this map was created by someone called GarrettJohnson.com. Garrett Johnson, thanks for putting this together. What this person did is they took the information from NOAA, NOAA. I showed you a little bit about them before, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They took information from NOAA, and if you're joining, please drop in the comments. Let me know, where are you? We could start pulling up information and looking specifically on where you might be geographically. So if you're watching this live, please chime in and let me know where you're at so we can talk about your region specifically if you like. But this map here, and it's kind of hard to see this this legend here. So it's average hail size. So 0.75 inches is all the way on the left, and then the darker color goes all the way up to 4.4 inches. So again, anything over 3 inches is probably not anything over the test. The UL and the IEC test stop at 3 inches. So at 3 inches, you're looking roughly at about this like dark pink to purple area. this dark pink to purple area. So you can see that's all of this. All of this region here has had hailstones that are bigger than 3 inches. So even if your solar panels were tested with that UL certification, even if they were tested with that UL certification, the test is limited to 3 inches, and you have to figure out how to protect your business, your likelihood from hailstones that are going to be bigger than 3 inches. And if you're in this area that I'm showing right now, all this pink, all this purple, if you're in this area, that's you. You got it. You have an exposure of where you might have to deal with hail that's bigger than the test. So which means if this occurs, your solar panels, they're not going to say, hey, it was within the testing protocol. No, it was above and beyond. What are you going to do? You got to get them all replaced. You got to get them repaired. Not repaired. I don't even think that's actually, the most cost-effective way to do it. You're going to have to get them replaced, or you're going to have to suffer the downtime, suffer the performance that will drop off. This is a big chunk. This is a big chunk of the U.S. and the testing procedures do not cover this big chunk of the U.S. So, something else to consider. If you want to dig further in, if this just seems like it's like, all right, Asia, I want to get into solar panels. I'm in one of these regions. I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Ohio, even up here up north, all the way down in Texas. I'm in one of these kind of areas that might be in this pink to purple range. But I got so much on my plate. I don't have time to do all this. I don't want to dig into it. That's what we're here for. So hit us up at trello.io and you can get a free consultation. We'll talk about where are you located, what are your concerns, and what can we do to help you find out, do you need to be concerned, one, and two, if you need to be concerned, what can you do about it? Because there are things that you can do about it, and we're going to talk about that as well during this live. Wow, I'm going 47 minutes in. This is what happens when Denise isn't here. I can just talk about this type of stuff for minutes on end. Some people may think it's a little nerdy, but this is what I was doing for over a decade. I have a lot of stories, a lot of information, a lot of perspectives. So I'm going to be sharing those, because this week we're talking about hail. Next week we're going to be talking about wind. There's things on solar panels, like how to make sure that your solar panels don't go flying off the roof or get impacted by large tree limbs that are flying around. That's the other thing. Depending on where you are for solar panels, it's not just impact from hailstone. It could be impact from something else. But we'll talk about that next week. I'll hold on that. I won't go too far. This is the website from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS. While I worked with one of those insurance carriers, I had the privilege of sitting on the board for a couple of years to represent the insurance company. This is an organization that's mainly funded by donations, but people in the insurance industry, companies in the insurance industry will provide capital to IBHS because IBHS will do testing for them. So there are some companies like FM Global that have their own research campus and they can do their own testing. And there's some companies that are not big enough, don't have the capital, don't have the, they're not ready for that. They can rely on IBHS to do a lot of their research for them. They get all this engineering information and then they use that for their clients. So IBHS does give some information to the public. They do. I've been to their facilities several times. They're awesome people. They put a lot of work in. It's an incredible location there at IBHS that they have, doing all this research and doing all this testing. Again, they were the ones that started thinking about, well, what's the impact of shingles, and just not new shingles right off the press, but old shingles. Let's test the older shingles. And they did all of this with the support of the insurance industry. So I sat on the board for 2 years to kind of say, here's what we're seeing in our company. IBHS, can you please start thinking about and doing some testing on this? And then we all collectively agree on what do we, as all different insurance companies. So there were people, in the room from a plethora of different, companies. What do we all agree is the most pressing issue? And then IBHS will start testing it. So they do a lot of this stuff. Some of it's members only, which means that you have to be an employee of that insurance company to even apply to be a member. So, again, public information is not all inclusive, but you can do some digging and have some you know the experience that I bring is that I know a little bit more of the context behind some of this stuff, so I can be of assistance to people who need to dig a little bit deeper. But so the first thing that this is a research document that's called "Hail in the Front Range of the Rockies and High Plains: Is it more damaging?" And I read this one because it talks about the size of hail and whether or not the size of the hailstones are actually decreasing or increasing. And as you can see on this third bullet, the number of hail. Let me just zoom in a little bit here so people can see. The number of hail days across Colorado has increased over the past decade. Colorado, key for the cannabis industry, decade, along with a number of very large hail events, which is hail larger than 2 inches, despite shrinking hail seasons. Again, it's very strange that a lot of the maps and stuff will talk about hail that's up to 2 inches. The testing procedures, they tried to go a little bit above and beyond at 3 inches, but the problem is that we have hail that comes down much bigger than 3 inches. So they're seeing that there's going to be bigger hail. Hail size is increasing. And there's no sign, as you can see on the second bullet that I have highlighted, there's no evidence to indicate that hailstorms will become less severe. So what they're saying is the stone sizes are getting bigger, and we don't have anything that's going to prove to us that it's going to get any better. Maybe it's going to progress into hailstones getting larger and larger and larger. And if your hailstone hits your solar panel at 3.1, 3.2, maybe it will make it. But again, you have to look at the testing procedure. You have to consider how was the test done. What's the failure mode? Because failure mode is key. What's considered to be a failed test? Is it a crack that I can see visually with my eye? Is it even the slightest microabrasion? Are they looking to see if there's some sort of a break in the vacuum that protects the solar panels from having moisture intrusion? Are they going to that extreme? Probably not. So you need to ask these questions of your solar panel manufacturer, or partner up with us and we could do the asking for you. All right. So this is just more information showing you that it's not as peachy and as the solar panel industry might want you to think it is. This is a little bit of information on the actual UL testing that I have in front of you. You can see a picture of some hail that destroyed these solar panels. Obviously, this would be a fail, but you can ask the solar panel manufacturers, and this is why you should ask them, what did you do? Did you go above and beyond the UL, or did you just stop at the basic 3-inch limit? Because designers, people that AHG, so AHG that you see there on that third bullet, AHG stands for authority having jurisdiction, which could be the building code, the local code. It could be your insurance provider. In some cases, sometimes the insurance companies, especially the bigger players, they almost sometimes have, I don't want to say more weight, but they're the ones that are going to be making the decision, because at the end of the day, the client has to pay their insurance premiums. And if the insurance company says, I'm not going to cover you unless you get solar panels that meet this criteria, then you wind up having to go out and figure out how to meet that criteria. So they can test these solar panels above and beyond 3 inches, but you're going to have to work with a company that has done so, or ask them to do so on your behalf. And of course, that's going to cost money. But at the end of the day, the risk of having, for some people who are raking in millions of dollars a day, or are working on some sort of a production line that is responsible for millions and millions of dollars a day, it's very crucial that you find out, if I'm going to rely on solar panels for my operations, I don't want any type of downtime at all. I can't withstand it, can't deal with it. We need somebody that's going to go above and beyond. So you can ask your solar panel manufacturers, have they done this? Or like I said, we can help you out and do it for you. Looks like NASA was doing some of this stuff back in the day. This is a 2013 thing that I have that I'm showing you right here. They were trying to figure out, okay, let's test some solar panels. So they tested 10 commercially available PV, so flat plate photovoltaic modules or solar panels. They tested 10 of them, and it says here that it was found that none of the 6 panel designs remained undamaged. Now, these were panel designs that only had a layer of silicone material, nothing else. They were all damaged by 1-inch hail, by 1 inch hail. What they to put 0.8-inch thin layer of acrylic over the solar panels, so it still lets some UV in, but it gives a physical barrier of protection. So they put a really thin layer of acrylic sheet on top and did the test, and they found that it was at least able to withstand up to 2 inches. But here we go again with that 2 inches. In 3 inches, hail comes much larger than that. It's increasing in size. It's increasing in severity, and you're going to need to think above and beyond. I think the solar panels that are out there, this fix of putting a thin sheet of acrylic will be helpful in what are considered those very low regions, those regions that are not in the pink and the purple regions that I showed before. It'll help you there. And it might even help you, in one hailstone, in one hailstorm, in your first year. But think about this. You're going to have your solar panels on this roof for years, decades or more. So that means every year you have to hope that you never suffer a hailstorm that's more than the 2 inches or the 3 inches that you feel like you're protected against. And that's a gamble that people sometimes don't have the privilege of taking. So you're going to have to think above and beyond. Here is in that same solar review website. Here are some, reputable solar panel companies. I can't. I would say do your own research. Let us know if you need some help finding the right manufacturer. We can call them, ask the right questions, get some information for you. Do your own. You definitely want to do your research. I'm not promoting any of these companies. Just showing you this as an example that there are some companies out there that are a bit more forward thinking when it comes to making sure that their solar panels are impact resistant. If you don't have a system that has passed that test, you may have to consider doing some sort of a temporary covering. They've got a few varieties out there right now, hard shell and padded covers. So hard shell cover might be something like that thin acrylic. It's a hard sheet. The question is, how thick of a piece of acrylic do you need? And then the question is, how do you install it? Do you install it right before, which means you need to have some sort of a hail tracking, system so you know when to do it. We'll talk about that soon. Or do you leave it on there permanently? How does that impact the UV performance? These are all questions that you're going to want to ask your solar panel manufacturer before you wind up putting on a covering of some sort. But keep in mind, and this is that same solar review at the very end, close to the bottom of this article. This is where they'll say, and this is what I said before, if you live in an area or work or have a cultivation facility in an area that receives heavy hail with stones larger than 2 inches, now that it makes sense to proactively cover your panels for protection before the storm. So they say, this solar review, they say if you live in an area that receives heavy hail with stones larger than 2 inches, but the testing procedures are supposed to go all the way up to 3 inches. So why are they saying 2? I think it's because really the greater bulk of these systems pass at 2 inches. Anything over 2 inches, they're really suffering some sort of damage to some extent, and maybe not getting that full certification. So you're going to want to ask questions about, if it passed, at what inch, and if it didn't pass, and what does passing mean to them? Because this solar review is still saying at the end of the day, at the end of it all, it makes sense to proactively cover your panels before a storm if you are experiencing larger than 2 inches. So that means, just to go back to this map, this FM map, 2 inches is anything that's in this dark pink. There you go. Very severe, dark pink area. Dark pink area. So if you're here, you're going to want to protect your solar panels. That includes the city of Denver as well. So all those cultivators out there, cannabis cultivators that are in the Colorado area, on the outskirts of Denver, using solar panels, you're going to want to make sure that you're looking at this a little bit more intently. So here it is right here. Even the solar review company is letting you know you're going to want to go a little bit above and beyond. But the question is, okay, if you're going to cover your solar panels, you need to know in advance that a hailstorm is coming. And luckily, there are systems out there, radar detections, alert systems that will let you know when a hailstorm is occurring. So the NSSL, which is kind of associated with NOAA, they have their dual polarization technology. So there's technology that's out there that's accessible to the public to figure out when a hailstorm will come. Some companies, and I'll show you an example of one. Some companies have done the nice job of connecting to these systems, these dual polarization radars, and giving out alerts and letting people know. So, all right, it's great to know that there's a radar out there, but I want to know. I'm busy. You're busy. I'm busy. People are busy. They don't have time to sit here and look every day to see whether or not a hailstorm is on its way. It'd be really great if you can get some sort of an alert, some sort of a notification on your phone, via text, etc., to let you know that a hailstorm is coming. So this is just one example. There are others out there. Again, I'm not promoting them. I'm just giving you a visualization of this as an example. They're free hail alerts. They'll notify you by hail 1 inch or larger. So you'll only get significant hailstorm alerts. You won't get the little, small things. And you can select your state, and then basically and I'll show you what I mean. You can select your state, and then you can select your county or your area and say, all right, I'm only really here. I want to know about hail that's coming for me in this area. So if I go to Colorado, you can see you got Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Denver, and Grand Junction. Depending on where you are, you could get a hail alert and find out whether or not you've got a hail storm coming, and develop, and what you should be doing in advance, is having some sort of a system in place to figure out, do I want to cover my solar panels? I mean, there are some places where you've got thousands and thousands of solar panels. You may want to consider more of a permanent covering, like a hard shell covering, versus if you just have a few cells, you've got, maybe 20, 100 or less panels. You might want to, you could possibly rely on these temporary padded covers or a temporary solution, but you need to know in advance. You don't want to wait until you get the alert and then figure out what are you going to do. These are all things that need to be thought through in advance. So you're going to want to make sure that you take the time to do so. So depending on where you are, if you're checking us out and you want us to drill down in your state right now, please drop it in the comments section, and we can pull it up for you. But it's all about pre-planning. So again, if you are in one of these areas, you're not quite sure about solar panels, you don't have the time, please hit us up at trella.io. You can go to our website, trella.io. I'll actually pull that up and show you exactly what you can do if you're looking for some assistance in this area, because we are here to help you. So regardless if you're a cultivator that's got 1,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet, please hit us up. We're here. You can go to trella.io, and you can either do one or two things. You can click schedule a free 20-minute consultation. That way you'll be able to schedule a time to talk to me at your convenience, or you can go to our sustainability and risk consulting page, learn a little bit more about what it is that we do, and our why, book that meeting, talk a little bit about the consulting services. Here's that climate disaster risk is our pop-up. Here's that climate disaster risk that we're talking about. And this is where this solar panel and the hail stuff would fall under. So we can help you out with all different types of natural disasters, not just hail, flood, hurricane, wildfire. All of these things will impact growers, whether or not you're growing indoors or outdoors. You're going to want to have to look into these things, especially if you're looking at it from an environmental sustainable, your environmental environmental social governance, all these acronyms are driving me nuts. But if you are about getting some sort of an ESG certification, or wanting to do some research on your facility to make sure that you have all that covered, climate risk has got to be included in that. A lot of people are sleeping at the wheel when it comes to that ESG and not including the risk from the climate. What's going to happen if there's a flood, if there's a hurricane, if there's hail? You got to think about those. I've got equipment outside. I've got equipment that's exposed. I want to make sure, again, that I don't have any downtime, because it's not just about relying on good insurance coverage and warranties. You don't want to have a downtime. You don't want your customers going somewhere else, whether it's retail customers or wholesale customers. You don't want your customers having to find another alternative, because they may not come back. They may not come back if they have a great experience with that other individual. And despite what most people think, there are lots of alternatives out there, and there are people that your competitors will keep your market. It can definitely happen. This is one of the main reasons that companies go out of business after a loss. Most companies go out of business within 2 to 3 years. And the biggest reason why they go out of business within 2 to 3 years is loss of market share. So they had great insurance coverage. The insurance company came back in, made them whole. They started operating again. But 2 to 3 years later, they're in the red and having to shut their doors because the market just changed on them while they were down and getting themselves back up and running. So please hit us up if you are concerned, if you want more information, if you need some support, if you need some training, if you want to just talk some things through. We are definitely here. So yeah, that is the end of my discussion on solar panels. I'll leave it here on this map. Again, that dark pink and that pink area is pretty vast. There's a lot. If you're in one of those regions, hit us up. Next week, we're going to be talking about solar panels and wind, which will deal more with people who are located on the East Coast. So if you're in the East Coast along the water, this is next week. You're definitely going to want to key in as well, because we're going to be talking about how to protect your solar panel investment from hurricane damage, not just the wind, but impact from debris, because that's key as well. A lot of people forget about impact. They think about the wind, but they forget that wind lifts shit and flies it all over the place. So you're not going to want to forget about that either. All right, everybody. This was a long one. This is what happens when I get into my nerdatorium mode and start talking about risk, equipment, because there's so many things that we can do to prepare. It's just trying to be a little bit, you just got to be aware of it. And we've got so much on our plate, each of us individually, families, businesses, yourself, all these things that you need to maintain. Thinking about something that's coming down the pipeline 2 years, 3 years from now, sometimes falls off the radar. It's okay. That's why we're here. We think ahead. That's the reason why in 2016 we started thinking of how do we grow tall plants indoors, because we didn't see anyone thinking about that. Didn't see anyone thinking about how am I going to, all right, yeah, you can grow things inside, but I want to grow more than just leafy greens, kale, lettuce, etc. I want to grow fruiting trees. I want to grow cannabis. I want to grow lots of things. How do we grow those indoors, and how do we stack them to make the most out of our space? Because we're going to need to be able to grow what we want, where we want. And by where we want, we mean in areas that might be prone to hail, or might be prone to wildfire, or might be prone to flood. So it's not just about the product that's inside the space. It's also about the equipment, the infrastructure that supports the space. You got to look at it all. And we're here to help you with that. All right, everyone. Mad Peace, Mad Love. We'll be back next week, noon EST, Wednesday, on YouTube or LinkedIn. Check us out. All right. Have a good rest of your day.